Welcome to the Marshall Pruitt Podcast and our day at Indy, our final for a couple of days, this being May 20th, Monday. We had a 2-hour practice session. Good Lord, that was mind-bending to see 33 cars more or less running in a conga line the entire time. It was really fascinating stuff to watch. So what we have here talks about that a tiny bit. For the most part, this is a lot of reaction to what took place yesterday at Indy. A lot of conversation about Fernando Alonso. We actually start off with my racer colleague, Chris Medland, who covers Formula One full-time, very deeply connected with the folks at McLaren. So I'm going to start off here with Chris, talking about a lot of things from his perspective, knowing that, again, he is a guy that isn't just covering McLaren here at Indy, but knows these people very well. Then move to young Santino Ferrucci from the Coyne Racing team. Has been quietly impressive, to me at least, as an oval rookie, young American who has spent his young life doing nothing but road racing. So he's learning here about how to go around and around, qualified 23rd. So solid showing by him. So interesting stuff there. Think you might, if you are a person who is on the fence about Santino, or definitely someone who is in the non-Santino support club based on some of his actions and comments last year, I think you might find it interesting to hear a comment from him sharing about personal growth and where he is at, where he feels he is at today. Then we close with a conversation with a fellow reporter, Jim Ayello, the IndyCar star from the Star of Indy. I'm not sure. We're still trying to figure out the exact title, but young Jim Ayello coming up in the sport as a reporter. I really enjoy him and his unique eye and angle. As someone who hasn't been doing this very long, definitely brings some very unique views and perspectives that some of us older farts might not see. So wanted to get with Jim to talk about a number of things coming out of the weekend, things that surprised him, things that caught my attention. Did a lot deeper dive in the McLaren topic with Jim, knowing that Chris Medland was somewhat limited on time. So I'm going to roll into Jim to close. So we go from Chris to Santino to Jim and I. And yeah, honestly, it's just talking. There's so much just conversation to be had. Some harder opinions have been formed, I think, in the wake of McLaren's failings. Did spend some time with Zach Brown, McLaren's CEO, on the phone early evening, about 15 minutes or so, hoping to get that whipped into some sort of story by Tuesday at some point in time. A lot of other content to get cranked out too. So this, although we don't have Cars on Track Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, and I think everyone just wants to take a deep nap to let their brain rest more than anything. There's still a lot of content to crank out, so going to try and get this Zach Brown stuff going here too. It's actually not just Zach. I started writing this actually a couple days ago about if McLaren fails to qualify, some of the reasons that I've observed why. So get into that a little bit here, if not a lot, with Jim. Anyway, so that's our offering for the day, the final day at Indy until we come back for Carb Day. All of this is presented by our dear friends at Cooper Tires, the Justice Brothers, both of whom have helped me to celebrate the 3rd anniversary of this little podcast, and also our pals at TorontoMotorsports.com that have been along for almost the entire ride too, and that will be here in Indy Saturday morning, 8 a.m. at the Indy Memorabilia Show right behind the Pagoda. They're going to have a pop-up shop one day inside, all kinds of custom Indy 500 t-shirts and stickers and all kinds of great stuff. So hoping you check them out. All right, with all that said, let's get going with our man Chris Medland, then on to our boy Mr. Ferrucci. We're going to close with Jim and I speaking. Then you'll hear some music fade out, and we will, well, in terms of days at Indy, that'll be coming back to you on Friday. A lot more podcasts to come, though, on a variety of topics here on the Marshall Pruitt Podcast. Chris Medland, we are not even at 24 hours since McLaren Racing failed to qualify for the Indianapolis 500. Are you feeling like me where saying the words McLaren Racing failed to qualify for the Indy 500 is still rather surreal?
Yeah, it's a bit, I mean, obviously I'm closer to that team a little bit than most other teams here, dealing with them in Formula One, and it was a bit of a shock yesterday. It was kind of a bit galling to watch them all go through the sort of emotion of it all, but at the same time it's just fascinating to see Indy do that to a team that wasn't expecting it, and it's why this qualifying format is so good. I know we had the new one, the way it played out this weekend, but it was just full of drama and tension. It was exhausting by the end of yesterday. So I woke up today and thought, yeah, that happened. That's a real kick to one of the biggest teams in Formula One and biggest teams in motorsport, I guess, with what else they're involved in. But it's just a sign of how tough it is to do well here, and it's not what I came here expecting to be talking about on the day I was leaving, I'll tell you that.
So we don't have you for long. You do actually need to get to the Indianapolis airport, fly to Chicago, then fly to Monaco, is it?
Well, I drive to Chicago because that's way more fun than flying.
Then you fly to Monaco.
I fly to Brussels because I'm so glamorous overnight, and then I fly down to Nice, and then I get a taxi to Monaco, as you just called it. I had to get it in there.
Well, we got to throw in Monaco.
Monaco.
So we'll get to, again, we don't have a lot of time, unfortunately, but we'll get to some of the failings here in a moment. But where I just think your context would be so fascinating is you cover McLaren among all the other F1 teams for a living every day. You've been there during the very lean years. Things are improving incrementally, but you have seen McLaren just stuck in absolute doldrums the last couple of years. Any parallels, feeling-wise, observationally, to what happened here to anything on the F1 side?
Yeah, I'd say there are some, actually. I mean, part of it is just it looked like there were too many voices at the top. Now, the leadership structure wasn't set right, and I think they tried to do the right thing, getting Bob Fernley in to oversee it, letting Gilles de Ferran look after the Formula One side on the whole, but then be able to dip in when he could. Zach, then he's brought Andreas Seidel in for the Formula One team, so he's able to step back. But then when you got here and you had Zach and Joe on the pit wall around Fernando, Bob sometimes there, sometimes not, wasn't really too sure what
floating
his role
around
was.
In the background.
Well, exactly, and now no longer sort of involved. So clearly there was a disconnect there, and it just, obviously that structure wasn't right, and that was something that they were struggling with before and seem to have put in place now that is better, which is why we've seen, I think, an improvement from McLaren on the Formula One team. They've got the right pieces in the right places, or better pieces in the right places to start making progress. They found out this weekend, and you only get one shot at finding it out, that the right pieces weren't in the right places with the IndyCar team. And I mean, Gilles de Ferran has said that it was one of the most painful experiences, or the most painful experience of his racing career, and that they'll learn from it. They've learned lots of lessons, and he wants to come back. I think they will come back, but I think they'll come back looking very different, because they'll have found, as they found for quite a few years in Formula One, that if you haven't got your structure right, it doesn't matter how good the people are. If they're not the right people in the right place, they won't be able to do a job that will then result in a quick car.
Fully realizing here, Chris, that this is not the Formula One team that has come to run the Indy 500 effort. There are some commonalities among personnel, not many. Gilles de Ferran being, I would say, the number one from an on-the-timing stand, every session standpoint. What surprised me, two things that surprised me, love to get your thoughts on. Gilles having run a successful American Le Mans Series sports car team bearing his name, run IndyCar teams bearing his name, been here as an entrant, Indy 500 entrant, also been in leadership roles in Formula One, now sporting director for McLaren. With his teams that bore his name, there were usually some very stout, at least one very stout manager. John Anderson comes to mind, the legendary and beloved late John Ando Anderson, who without Ando, Gilles' sports car team isn't a team. Gilles being positioned at McLaren as sporting director, I love the sound of that, because at least by title it plays to his strengths. Everyone knows, brilliant technical mind. I love Gilles, personal friend. I would never accuse that man of being a manager. And so seeing Gilles in a management position, that was among the first alarm bells that, winner here, knows place, get all that, but core strengths, I'm not totally sure. That stood out to me. I don't know if that stood out to you. Another thing that just stood out very quickly was, with Gilles' Formula One experience, now also with McLaren, every Grand Prix weekend is one of immense pace and speed. Everything that happens by the second, highly orchestrated, maximize every moment available on track, etc. I don't know where that urgency went, but it looked like someone fed them a made-up schedule that said they had 3 weeks of practice going into qualifying. Somewhere in this I'm not laying this all on Gilles' feet. I'm sure as hell not laying it on Bob Fernley's feet. I'm not sure what to make of this, but it looked like there's just odd positioning of people in roles they shouldn't have been in, maybe, and just a bizarre lack of sense of urgency. Did you see either?
Definitely the lack of sense of urgency. It was yesterday morning, wasn't it? And I walked in just for the start of that half-hour practice session when the rain was coming, but the crucial bit of running that all the teams, the 6 drivers were going to get, that were going to be in the last row shootout, and McLaren weren't ready. The car didn't appear until, I think we timed it, to be specific, at 9 minutes, that it was then ready in the pit lane.
We heard from a friend that we spoke with. He said he was down there speaking with 2 senior members of the team, asked them, when are you guys going out? And he told us. One of them said 10:15, the other one said 10:45 at the same time. Yeah. And these are 2 people who should know without a doubt, which we don't know, but could that have been the reason they were late? They thought they might have gone out in the Fast 9 session? That'd be
potentially. Maybe they were expecting it to be completely delayed with weather coming in, because it was coming, but it wasn't thunder. So we were just going to run until rain started falling, rather than we'll predict it.
Fair point to mention, though, that of the 6 cars eligible to go out in that session, all but Juncos went out, and they actually didn't because their car wasn't ready and never planned to go out. So at least the other teams, rain or not, were there in case they could go out.
They'd planned it. I mean, you look at the way I think Hinch and Sage both got quick runs in, and they went early, and they were done within 10 minutes, I think. Basically, by the time they were going back and saying, yeah, we're happy, we've run 10 laps, we've got the balance that we want, or we know what we've got underneath us, now we'll go and make sure we tweak it ahead of qualifying. Fine. But McLaren came out, suddenly there's a scramble, car wasn't set up right, so Fernando does 1 lap, 2 laps, bottoming out badly, comes in to get that adjusted, goes out, and as soon as he starts his first flying lap to get a feel, the yellow comes out because it starts to rain, and that's it. They've missed it. So
and it was still dragging and sparking as well after the adjustment.
It was just one of those where I was amazed, because that's not what they're like in Formula 1. And they've had a bad time of it, but they're still, this year, one of their strengths certainly has been the way they operate as a team. It's been really impressive, because they don't have the 4th quickest Formula 1 car, but they've moved a little bit clearer in 4th place in the championship, because they just execute brilliantly. They did the fastest pit stops in Barcelona. As a Formula 1 team, they're excellent, and that's where I feel something's lacking in terms of this side. But they also did put experienced people in place, and I think they probably backed that experience to then get them through, unlike someone like Dragon Speed, who then went for, let's go through a process step by step, we have to tick every box, we have to start at number 1 and count up. And McLaren, I think, because of their experience, thought we can jump to number 5 because we know what 1, 2, 3 and 4 do. And they might know what they do, but I think it just tripped them up a little bit, and it could have still worked. We're talking the finest of margins. You look at the times. On both days, Fernando was within a whisker of being in, both in the top 30 and then the top 33.
Let's close on this, Chris. So you're now heading out of Indy to Monaco. I know I'm asking you to predict the future, which we believe you can because you're English, and that's where wizards come from.
Indeed, yeah.
What do you think the reaction might be among your reporter colleagues, your friends among the various F1 teams you'll see as you walk up and down pit lane? Because they're all going to be asking you, what do you think the reaction might be? Ha-ha, embarrassment? Maybe we should give this series, this race, more credit than we did? I'm just curious what you think the reactions might be.
It comes from, I know what it's going to be, from certain areas of the media. From the print media and sort of the Fleet Street style that we have, it's going to go for McLaren and hard, that it was a waste of money, that they were arrogant, that they underestimated the place, and questions will be asked about how much it cost. And Zach said on Friday that they were going to turn a profit here, but I imagine they're not going to do that by not qualifying. So he said, by selling out the car and all the interest they got, everything they sold on it, that actually financially this was a good event for them. But now it won't be, so they'll get that question. But then from the more general motorsport media that I'm involved in, they're going to be a bit more understanding, but they're also going to say, why did it go wrong? They're going to dig deep into, who did a bad job, or what were the mistakes that were made, and will you be back? Because has this burned them too much? I don't think it has. I think they'll be back, just for the record, but that will be the question that gets asked from that side. The teams themselves, there'll be some that are looking and probably, that'll be laughing almost at The way that McLaren have used it to, bolster their profile over here, they've really talked it up, really committed to it, and then for it to not happen, there might be a few teams that are feeling a bit smug that they don't get distracted by that sort of thing. But then if McLaren show up and have a good weekend, and I'm sure they'll have a solid one in Monaco, then it hasn't distracted from Formula One. And that's one thing that Zach was very keen to make sure didn't happen. As much as this has been a failure, if it doesn't affect the Formula One project, then he's fulfilled that promise. But I think some of the teams might be a little bit smug about the fact that they haven't taken this sort of risk. I know one person's going to get a lot of questions actually who has nothing to do with McLaren, but that's Lewis Hamilton, because he saw Fernando qualify here up in, was it fifth he was in 2017 on the Saturday, and Lewis after that in Monaco said, well, then you start to question the quality of IndyCar if Fernando can just rock up against guys that run all season, teams that run all season, jump in a car and be that quick. It's like, he knows how good Fernando is, but he said, you start to question it. Now Lewis will get asked, it's like, you still think that when you've just seen McLaren fail completely. So, it'll be wide-ranging. I imagine it'll be the hottest topic in the Formula One paddock for most of this week until we get some action in Monaco. So, it's going to be fun.
Well, as the presenter asking those questions in press conferences, do not let the one slide on Lewis Hamilton. And remember, Miller and I gave you a little secret code word we want you to release just for us that only we will know.
Wasn't it 4 words?
It was. It was something about seeing you later next week. I'm not sure. It was a day in the week, something like
day,
that.
Yeah.
Snoop Medley Med, we genuinely love having you here. We hate the fact that you got to go back and do your day job, but seriously, it's a blast always having you here, and just the professionalism and perspectives you bring from coming outside our little provincial world of IndyCar. It's always appreciated, my friend.
I love it, and I'll be back next year. Hopefully so will McLaren, and hopefully I'll be here for the whole thing and see the show finally. So, looking forward to being back. 24
hours of Fernando Alonso coverage brought to you by Racers Chris Medland. Santino Ferrucci, you get to take a little bit of time off after qualifying for your first Indy 500. I'm not sure why you aren't being dispatched to some great place, but other drivers are. But you should be happy. They're jealous probably the fact that you're getting to chill right here while they're sprinting for airports at the moment to go help promote the 500. Let's talk about your month so far. You've been on my list of folks I've been wanting to catch up with because you and I would say Marcus Ericsson have stuck out the most for me among the rookies as those who have been quick, respectful of the place. Can't recall any big oversteer moments. Seems like you've plugged yourself in to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway with the right mindset. Yes? No?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot to do with that's the preparation. So you go into this month listening to everybody, like Juan Pablo Montoya, Sebastian Bourdais, Michael Cannon, Pancho Carter. You just take all these people's wealth of information and you compile it and you listen. You know, the biggest thing with my engineer Mike was we're not trimming. And after looking back on it now, on Saturday after the qualifying run, I was like, in the back of my mind, as much as I wanted to trim on Wednesday and on Thursday, when after qualifying was done, I can totally understand why we didn't, why we kept it safe, and I'm kind of glad that we're back in race trim right now.
There were some attempts at trimming a little bit, or at least letting things get a little bit funkier, and the stories of you coming back with your eyes just the size of bowling balls, like, you're kidding me, right? Just share some of that. And even when we spoke after qualifying yesterday, on Saturday, you were talking about the wind chucking the car around. I mean, your descriptions of how violent / scary / why do human beings do this by will? It was cool to hear that honesty.
Yeah, I mean, we started our Friday. This is when you start trimming, and we did 3 runs in the morning. I went the very first run. I went out. I went down the straight, and I pitted immediately, just because I had 3 people talking to me, and I couldn't focus, and I was too jittery, and just couldn't do it. So I just pitted. Did the next run. Car just felt really unstable going through 1-2. Just backed off it, came in. Mike kind of knew what was going on. He changed the car. We did 1 full run at the end of the day on Friday. That was it. Set us up, and I was actually really happy. I thought the car was really planted. Then you walk out of the trailer and Saturday, and it's kind of like, all right, 3 people are going home. You don't want to be one of those. And Mike comes in. He's like, you're gonna make the show. Just telling you, just keep it conservative. Keep your foot in it, and it'll be fine. And after lap 1, I was like, all right. Lap 2. At that point, I had committed. My foot wasn't coming off the throttle. My brake foot was probably bending the dead pedal. And made lap 3. I went around turn 2, and the car just slid. And I was like, It's like, this is the moment where you see Rosenquist, where you see Pato, and where we saw Hinch have that ugly accident, and you're just like, it's like, I thought that was gonna be me. In lap 4, I didn't touch my tools, I didn't touch anything because I was so nervous to just do anything. So I just kind of stuck it around, prayed, didn't want to lift. I knew that the one thing I had been told was don't turn the wheel twice. Turn the wheel once in all 4 turns on that lap, and where it ended up. And I was so happy that it was over with. Like, as far as you can't come here and not be prepared to put your life on the line in qualifying if you want to do well. Like, it's one of those things where you really feel like you're playing with it. So I'm kind of happy that it's over.
So looking at your qualifying performance, you'll be starting 23rd today at the end of the 2-hour, call it final practice. I know we have carb day, but that's, although that is technically final practice, it's a lot of pit stops. This is a day where effectively everyone can just go balls out. They're not worrying about anything other than pure race running. 21st here. What are you feeling for your upcoming debut in terms of competitive abilities? If Cannon says, guess what, kid, I'm still not trimming on race day, and you may be 20th or so in your debut, is that a disappointment? Is that I got a good one in the bank, and next year, Cannon, we are going to trim? Where's your head?
Well, we did our first run in a pack of like 20 cars, and that was like, wow. Like, this is nuts. Like, this is my introduction to oval racing right here, and I'm just like, all right, I ran with 5 or 6, and all the practice days I ran with 3 cars with my teammate. And you're sitting in the back of that train of 20 cars, and, your head's just bobbling back and forth. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that we're going to do this, and there's going to be 33 of us. So, it came in, made a change because I was just struggling. I was too nervous to use the tools, too nervous to get on top of the car, too nervous to get close to anybody. Made a change, went back out, and I think we passed a fair amount of that pack, which was really nice, confidence inspiring. And I just went back. I just debriefed, and I told Mike, I was like, is there any way we could put more downforce in it?
Wow.
I was happy with it. So
share with folks what it is like, as you're not just an Indy 500 rookie, as you mentioned. You are an oval racing rookie. So you're having to learn a whole new discipline at the scariest, fastest, most important place there is to do it. You know how to set up and execute a pass on any natural terrain or street course. You don't even have to think. It's just natural having done that. Share what you just learned even more about just recently here today of, okay, so I'm 7th in the row, but this person moved a little bit to the left. Could I possibly try him around the high side? No, I mean, you're not just setting up for a race day, right? You're also filling a lot of empty pages of experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest point for me today is when I was behind Castroneves.
Never heard of him, but go ahead.
And man, was he playing with me. When I mean, like, he was checking his mirrors, defending. It wasn't defending because I would pass him. It's because he was trying to teach me how to pass him, which I thought was really unique.
Fascinating.
And, you don't see that very often. I sat behind him for 4 laps trying to get by until I understood the timing, because racing someone like Castroneves is very different than racing another rookie. Like, Hanley. Just, we all make the same mistakes. We all tend to lift in turns 2 and 4 because we don't know any better, and it kills our runs down the straight. With Castroneves, he was defending me to get me to lift off sooner going into 3 and into 1 so I could get a stronger run out of 2 and out of 4. Yeah, which I thought was pretty hilarious because you don't normally get help from, other teams, and to me that was like, all right, so this is where he wants me to pass him, and this is where he wants me to pull out. So I was kind of like, I get it.
And that's the thing you hear the veteran drivers talk about, and that's of course I want to beat you, and I have every intention of doing that, but if I can, let's either work together or let me show you, if you don't know, how we can both coexist, and you'll get the thing you need if you're faster than me, but keep in mind I'll be doing the same. But there's just that thing of, okay, I can't be the guy chucking it in at the 1 marker and screwing the guy's exit off of corner, road course, such and such. This is, let's compete. Got to take care of each other, though.
Yeah, and that was cool. It was nice to have someone race me like that too. I mean, it's kind of being a rookie. Sometimes veteran drivers try to get a little bit of a aggressive arm on you, but they race you hard and clean. And it's nice to have someone like that who's, I've probably talked to a couple of times throughout the whole year, kind of like teach you on track. So, which is a different experience, but makes you a little bit more confident going into the race.
Let's talk about this place. You coming up, karting off to Europe, Formula One being a goal. Not saying you've given up on that goal, but where did the Indy 500 stand for you, if at all, in I want to get there someday? Just in terms of focus, was that something on your list?
It was probably on my list when I was in my 30s, not in my 20. Just because of the fact that I always thought it was dangerous, to come out here, and it's a dangerous sport. It's dangerous running on ovals at 230 miles an hour. There's nothing, it's very safe, but at the end of the day, it's, you got to have your wits about you, and everyone's got to respect everybody. And, to be doing it, even walking through Gasoline Alley on qualifying and all the fans there, I mean, the fans are like unreal. You don't have an energy like that in Europe because everyone's always so hidden and you're always so away from people.
Did you hear me booing? I was trying to offset that a little bit, but anyways.
Is that what that was?
Yeah.
I was walking through. I heard one person.
I'm throwing stuff at you too, but it didn't. My aim was really bad.
No, I mean, it's impressive. Even in the rain, man, people sticking around. Are you kidding? It's like I would have been home. I mean, I was out signing autographs in the rain. I was like, oh, this is great. I can't, they're like, thank you. I'm like, oh, thanks for staying. They make this race, in my opinion. I think it's a fan-made race more than it is anything else.
Let's stick on this. So obviously, having competed a handful of races to start your first full season rookie campaign at IndyCar, got to meet some fans, folks are getting to know you. What has the experience been like here as a rook among many rooks? What's it been like, folks stopping you, saying hello, wanting a selfie and whatnot? Have you felt that greater embrace from folks?
Yeah, it's, and I just, like I said, coming from where I was in European racing, it's hard for them to get to you. It's hard for fans to come find you. Or here, they're just walking around, It's like, but it's like you're also a casual person too. You're just a normal guy. You just happen to be doing a slightly different job. And, it's cool to sit there and share an experience or to hear where some people are from. I think the greatest thing that I had all weekend was on Saturday. I think it was Friday or Saturday of the GP. I was walking back, and there was a kid just literally walking past behind the motorhome, the driver-owner lot, motorhomes, just walking. No idea, and he was wearing he made his own Santino Ferrucci shirt.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, hey, you, stay right there. So I went in, I grabbed a Sharpie and a couple of stuff that I have in my bus, and I ran them out, and we took a picture. I was like, for me, that's like, I've never seen that before.
That is so cool.
That made my day.
That is so cool.
I was really happy. And, I thought, stuff like that you see walking around the paddock, that's like, you feel it makes you feel like you belong.
It's close on one or two items that stand out that I think might be of unique experience or items for you, having spent many of your young years in your young life in Europe, knowing that a name like Fernando Alonso will always be legendary? Did it strike you at all as a guy who has tested a Formula One car twice, is it? Handful of times?
Twice. Mm-hmm.
Sitting in the race, your very first attempt, someone like Fernando Alonso, who on any normal day could be on the pole with the right car, right team, etc. I'm guessing just having grown up and seen him perform in front of you for years, it must have been a little bit surreal to realize I get to stay. Fernando's on a flight home.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like to be a team like that, a whole team that's been preparing for this race as well. I mean, our team's been preparing as well since January. It just comes down to what you put in, what you get out, and sometimes, it's nothing. Fernando's probably one of the greatest drivers to walk around, especially in this paddock and in F1 paddock and all those good things. And I kind of wish he was in the race, but also I think it's a testament to how hard it is to get into this race. And it really shows that you need to bring your A game no matter where you go. And I think it also is a testament to how hard the IndyCar paddock and how competitive it's getting over the past few years. So, which is nice to see.
Let's wrap up on this, Santino. So, young cat, lots of energy, lots of belief in yourself, wanting to attack and win the world every day. You've been very open about, I might have some nerves going on and my mind might be divided a little bit. I need to focus myself. This has been the easy part of the event. Things go a little sideways here in a couple days, where Carb Day is going to be tons of people and activity and concerts outside. And it's going to rain. Who knows what's going to happen? It's going to be hundreds of thousands of people. Then you get to go race for a couple hours and try and win the biggest race in America, if not the world. How do you keep yourself in that happy place mentally where you can perform as an athlete? And do you have any folks in or around you that will either help keep you there, give you a little foot in the ass if you're getting offline a little bit? How do you get ready for what should be a pretty amazing Sunday?
To be honest, the fact that you get to stay in a motorhome, which is filled with your personal belongings, and you have your family around you, you have your friends around you, you have my sponsor around me, who's a really good friend, and
you got your pajamas, you got your teddy bear.
I got my Make It Go wire.
Look at that.
I got everything. So I was like, it's so cool to finish up the day and go back and literally play video games. Like, get to go out and play Need for Speed. It's just like, I can't even argue with that. I think mentally, as far as a mental state, I've almost about found myself and almost fully recovered from everything in Europe to where I've been, where I felt like I haven't been since karting days, which is nice. So it's nice to, I'm just so happy to be around and just have a smile on my face everywhere I go, just because it's always a new experience. You never know what you're going to get. So, and I'm very much looking forward to Carb Day, seeing all the fans Saturday, doing all the activities, traveling around, and Sunday walking out, because I think Sunday is one of those days you're going to walk out to the grid and you're just you're that superstar that gets to get in one of these cars. You're one of those lucky kids that gets to go around and try and win this race. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
I'm staring at your PR ace, Karina Redmond. We're going to need to make sure he has at least one pair of adult diapers on, because he might just wet himself walking out. It's going to be a little crazy for you.
I got him. Don't worry. I got a couple sets of Nomex. We're all set. And I ordered my second suit, so you just never know.
See, well prepared. Santino, seriously, I'm not only happy for you, this month has been going well for you, but having seen you come back to the U.S. last year after big learning opportunity in Europe and seeing that look in your eyes and that feeling of a lot of weight in your shoulders, a lot of looking at people to see what their intent was. Are they coming after me? It's been cool, as you mentioned, to see you back when I met you when you were, I think, physically 4 feet tall with the afro about 5'5", but nonetheless, as a 12-year-old or whatever the hell you were, it is really cool just to see you back to a place where the light's in your eyes, that smile is there, and you're just feeling you've learned and you're growing and becoming a 20-year-old. You'll be 21-year-old, 22, and just earning your way in the world, man. So really happy for you.
Thank you. And I did rock the afro on Fast Friday. Told everybody I would. I definitely did. So it was fun. It was Fast Friday. Maybe I'll do it again on Carb Day.
If there's one grand disappointment this month, it's Herta's little monkey ass who's been threatening he was going to go with the Mohawk. I mean, I realize we got couple more days left, but I've seen nothing. So at least we know you've delivered.
Yeah, got to change it up,
Step it up, Herta. You suck. Jim Ayello, the IndyCar, Indy Star at the Indianapolis Star, ye of IndyCar reporting and other things local here in greater Indianapolis sports. So coming out of, I've yet to even come up with a proper descriptor for what last weekend was.
I was so flustered.
Our boy Robin Miller is working on the mailbag.
Yeah.
And as much as I love talking about the day's events with drivers, I just need a fellow reporter to help try and digest, explain, contextualize what the hell just happened.
Let's see if we can do it. Actually, it's funny. The first day of, I recorded a video after, I think, Saturday. And it was the segment we do. We do this thing called Pit Pass Live at Indy Star. And that first segment of the video was, I don't think I said a coherent word in it. I was just...
Cars.
I was cars.
Weird.
It was an Alonso struggle and Hunko's the sponsor. And that was cut, and that was the end of the first segment. So, yeah, I hope people get to enjoy that and watch it a million times. Because it was, Saturday was wild. Sunday was just, an hour and a half of just sheer drama. I didn't even... Just being honest, I was in the garage talking to Trevor Carlin when Spencer Pickett went out for the final run of the Fast 9. I mean, I was just trying to get interviews with people candidly, and it all happened so fast. So much happened. Where were you? Were you on track the whole time?
I was down. Yeah, I wanted to be down there just to see reactions, to speak with some folks.
Well, you got to do photos too, so that's a different story. Yeah. And I had a little help, so I had people, there, but.
No, I mean, the main thing I was looking for, and you and I discussed, and we'll pass this on to our friends at IMS. So with this revised qualifying arrangement where we have a good old dirt track style LCQ, last chance qualifying, on Sunday.
Yeah.
Structurally, they had it where the last 6 would be followed immediately by the Fast 9. Fast 6 would work there. But the Fast 9
already this week. Yep.
And the way things were set up is you would have the last 6 qualifiers go, and as often happens during regular qualifying here, say on Saturday, person makes their qualifying run, speak to ABC in the past, this year and going forward, NBC, speak to IMS Radio, blah, blah, blah. Then they get brought around. Media gets to speak to them in a pen. Then they're released. So done with all media duties.
Right.
That same formula was applied to the last row qualifiers, which is a little bit weird because we have 6 drivers, Jim.
Yep.
Trying to make 3 spots.
Yep.
And if the first person through sets whatever time and they go through that system, which is great, you get to see them and, hey, what do you think? Really, the questions to ask will only be ready of any value once we've gotten through a couple and we start to find out who's in, who's out.
Yep.
Because how is your car doesn't matter if they're going home. And so after figuring out that kind of rhyming mechanism, that's why I was just down there going, okay. So, most people were trying to track who's where, who's what. Knowing that you were trying to speak with Trevor Carlin, I can just tell you that I was in the midst of speaking with a somewhat grumpy Max Chilton, as you would be.
Right.
And in the middle of it, the audio I couldn't use is him kind of cursing and going, holy bleep, Fernando Alonso just got bumped out. And I think there were many cheers for Kyle Kaiser doing that.
Right.
Along with gasps. You'll rarely hear gasps at any time other than when a crash takes place.
Absolutely.
Just share from your view, Jim, as someone who's, again, early and young in your reporting career, what it's like seeing the weight and gravity of that play out.
It was incredible because I was down with Hinchcliffe when that happened, because that was going to be the story I was going to write. So we were all kind of watching him, and once Max didn't turn a quick enough time, there was that sigh of relief from that entire team. Hinch was kind of subdued about it, and I think you were in the interview later where he was just talking about how it feels great to be back in, but he was mostly just feeling gutted for the guys that missed. I mean, no one knows better than him how bad it is to miss, and so that was an interesting thing to be part of too. And then you see. So I went back with Hinchcliffe to see that, and then all of a sudden you see Kyle Kaiser, and I don't know about you, but after the third lap, I didn't think he had it. I thought that fourth lap, there was going to be enough degradation of the tires, that the time was going to go down enough that Fernando was going to sneak his way in, and that was going to be the way it was going to play out. And then, like you said, you could hear not that many people there on Sunday. Hard to fault the Indianapolis area with all the rain and the big delays and all that kind of stuff, but credit to the people who stuck it out. But you could hear the gasp go and then cheering for Kyle Kaiser. And honestly, what I saw was down pit road was just a bunch of green uniforms jumping up and down, celebrating, screaming.
The Juncos boys.
It was unbelievable. It was such a cool moment. I wish I was down there for that moment. And I think you probably wrestle with this all the time. Where do you have to be to get the best story, the one you're working on? And also, if there's 18 other reporters doing this, I probably should be over here getting the other thing.
Exactly. And so funny you mentioned that. And I realize we're just talking a little bit of inside baseball here, but for those of you who are listening to my podcast, you know that structure is not necessarily a friend or ally at all times. So where I happen to be standing on pit lane as this was going down was in a spot where I'm watching Zach Brown, McLaren CEO, as Kaiser is completing his run. So 3 laps in, finishing his 4th, same thing. This is going to be close. And just as he swept by, at least with the timing and scoring that's shown on the public displays here, there's a little bit of a gap. So it's not like the minute the car crosses start-finish, the speed pops up. It's usually the driver gets into turn 1, maybe the short chute. That's kind of when the info comes up. And so knowing that delay, saw Zach, he looked up, noticed, and saw that they were out, and just started walking away down pit lane towards turn 1 to, assuming, just leave.
Into oblivion.
And so that was one of the things where I'm sitting there going, well, I know Zach, I've known Zach for a while. I probably should go chase him, because no one, it wasn't like he had a mob of people around. He was just kind of on his own and very frustrated.
Of course.
I should have gone straight to him. But I also realize that if I do that, I'm going to miss Ricardo Juncos, Kyle Kaiser.
Exactly.
And so it's do you go after and get the wah, wah, wah quote, or do you go and try and get the quote about what is really a celebratory thing?
Yeah.
So although the failure of Fernando Alonso to qualify is the thing that's overriding stuff on a global level, at least here locally, and I hope at least within the continental United States, folks are embracing this little team that could. So that's the direction I went. Coming out of yesterday, though, we've seen Jenna Fryer, who you and I both share a lot of affinity for. And
for sure.
Hell of a reporter.
Absolutely.
Tough as nails and really excellent at what she does. Great interview with Zach Brown, where Zach laid out the majority, not all, but the majority of their failings in what led to qualifying for the Indianapolis 500. I have a lot of faults, Jim. I share a decent amount of those with either my listeners, my friends. I'm not someone who really tries to cover up the things about me that suck or should be better. I got to admit, I don't usually try and offer them in a chronological manner. And a lot of them, so there's no question how badly I'm failing.
Yeah.
This was a shock.
Yeah.
As someone to, I don't know if expose themselves that much, because we'll get to this in a sec. There's a little bit of an agenda here you could discern from the quotes that he offered. Were you surprised just to see the level of admissions to Jenna?
I think it's one of those, you get out in front of the story, right? You embrace it. It's always like one of those things where if you hide or you try to you give one little quote here and there, or you don't really tackle the story and face it head on, that's when it gets worse. So I think if Zach just came out and said, here's the 6 errors that we made, and throws it all at the wall at one time, that story disappears a little bit quicker. That's my theory on what happened. But obviously, like you said, you read the story, and I think you're right. I think there's an agenda, and I think unfair to say it coincides with the news that occurred today. I think that Bob Friendly getting fired today was partial. I don't think his name actually came up in the story or in a quote, if I remember correctly.
No.
But there were some inferences there that I think he said something about how it just wasn't a very well run. There was an organizational issue with the team. And again, when you say that and then you fire the president of McLaren Indy, I think you've said what you were trying to say about the way the organization was run. So I'm back with you though. Stunning confession, but they had to say something, right? I mean, because this is McLaren we're talking about, and Dragon Speed, and Juncos, and McLaughlin Marshall. I mean, these are teams operating on an eighth of the budget, maybe. I mean, depending on the numbers you hear and believe about the money that McLaren brought to this program.
Elton Julian, he was joking, but he was also, there was some hidden truth when he said, I believe there is more money in McLaren's hospitality compound here at Indy than my entire team.
I'd believe it. I mean, yeah, it's one of those things. So I do think you have to, it's a public failure. And I think to a certain degree an embarrassment for a team like McLaren, right? I don't know how you feel about that.
Where I thought things were interesting is Gilles de Ferran had been the person thrown onto the funeral pyre.
Yes, he was thrown to the wolves last night.
And I thought that I interpreted that as a calculated move.
Okay.
I'm not saying if my interpretation's correct, but I know that Zach, having been under fire, at least in the media. Media is not a board member at McLaren, has no voting power, so ultimately meaningless.
Should, though, right? Yeah.
Well, no. If those who fund and are in charge of McLaren are listening to external sources, though, they would have heard folks questioning Zach Brown's capabilities 3 years in their Formula One team, getting better, but still. Yeah. Anyways, there's been a lot of fodder that could be used to say, boy, maybe this person isn't the right CEO for our racing endeavors. It didn't strike me as odd to then see, knowing the lingering heat from F1 on that subject, that when it came time to come up and sit and speak about all their failings, Zach wasn't the guy, wasn't the one on camera, wasn't the one putting himself out. Gilles de Ferran, who had really become the de facto leader of this effort, was indeed the one put up in front of people. So that's the part that surprised me, to see that Zach actually is the one going on the record and going so deep into acknowledging their failures. We'll see if strategically, if there's good strategery in that move or not. Where this thing takes just an interesting turn for me, Jim, is from what I saw here, and I've mentioned this more than a few times in the past 3-4 weeks now. From what I saw here in the Indy Open test, standing down there for about an hour and a half when they were rolling out, I could tell that this was a ship that was, if not going to sink, going to run aground without some major structural changes.
Yeah.
A great chief mechanic like Anton Julian was not going to save the whole thing in and of himself. What I found interesting in many of the quotes offered, share your thoughts on this, please. A lot of blame, a lot of cover your ass involved, a lot of throwing technical partner Carlin, I don't know if under a bus, at least under an SUV, seemed to be something where you and I both recalled quotes from Zach truly diminishing the link and arrangement leading up to the month.
Correct.
Where does not just the opening up and revelations of errors stand with you, but maybe some of the agenda stuff we mentioned in the beginning, and maybe some of the rather weird places of blame to shift that might suit oneself?
Well, it's like we talked about. I do think that Bob took the brunt of some of those quotes from Zach, and obviously paid the price with his job. But yes, you are correct. I found it very fascinating that Zach and Bob, who I talked to, I don't know, Thursday, and I said, after they had crashed and they were trying to rebuild the car, I said, you guys going to be able to lean on Carlin a little bit here to try to help you guys back up to the speed, because you're not going to turn that many laps. And they said, we're not relying on Carlin at all. This is all us. We're going to do this. Carlin's doing their own thing. And then to see the quotes that he says, well, Carlin clearly couldn't. I think it was Carlin clearly couldn't provide
support us or provide
support the
service.
Yeah, exactly. And once they took on Pato, it's pretty much what he said, right? Because once they took on that third car to add Max and Charlie, it's surprising. It is genuinely surprising. I'd be lying to you if I said I haven't already reached out to Trevor to see what he thought about it. I think he's flying back to England right now, so hopefully he gets to enjoy a pleasant flight and doesn't have to think about it for a little while. But I can't. Yeah, I don't want to speak for Trevor, but I bet he'll be shocked when he sees it, to be honest with you.
I don't believe he'll be shocked. I think having seen some behavioral trends
that's a fair point.
In their interactions, interrelation, I actually think he'll say, yeah, that's about right. That's kind of what I would have expected.
You thought he would get thrown under the bus, huh? I just thought with the partnership ending that he might just let it go. Zach, I mean.
I've heard strong suggestion that there was some stressing of that relationship in relation to something Robin reported, I reported, you may have reported as well, about Pato Ward having breakfast with Zach at Long Beach.
Yes.
And that possibly being something that was news to the team that employs Pato. And just from this is asking someone's girlfriend or boyfriend if they want to go have dinner without letting their significant other know that, hey, I might want to date who you're currently with.
Yeah.
Just relationship-wise, there's nothing illegal. But if we're talking about good citizenship, and especially in a press release saying that, hey, these two organizations are working together,
yeah,
that might not give a great indicator of where proper respect is shown, lanes being stayed in. So
well, I can tell you that, talking to Pato about it, it's not a surprise that Trevor, that given what that breakfast that you referenced, that Trevor was, from what Pato said, influential in helping organize the Red Bull situation. Maybe he was a little upset about the way Zach came in with McLaren, and Trevor said, oh yeah, okay, well, watch this. I don't know. I know that when Helmut called, am I saying his name right?
Yes, Helmut Marko.
I was just going to say it. I didn't, want to stress the right syllables there. No, I know that Trevor spoke very complimentary of Pato and was very helpful in trying to make that deal work. And I wonder, I didn't maybe consider that there was some different agenda there, maybe for him. I do know that there was also some stress I think Jenna mentioned this, that the papaya orange wasn't the correct papaya orange when the car was painted by the Carlin team, and that was part of the reason the car wasn't ready once Alonso wrecked. I don't know if that was throwing Carlin under the bus or not, but.
Did you happen to notice, Jim, on Kyle Kaiser's backup car, the Frankenmobile that rolled out, did you happen to notice that the AFP, the Advanced Frontal Protection Device mounted atop the cockpit, did you happen to notice that the area around that was unpainted? It was freshly sanded?
Oh, I don't think I did notice that.
Okay. So knowing that time on track is really the most valuable thing here. Did Juncos Racing say, poop, got a big crash, got to recover, but there's a bare carbon, uncovered, unseemly portion of the tub. Sorry, Kyle, you're going to have to sit and wait while we make the car look pretty.
I just don't understand why wouldn't they just send them out, make sure they get the laps turned in, paint it the next day? And again, if it's orange but not papaya orange, maybe you have a good eye. Maybe you notice. I don't notice.
Dear listeners, you can't see this, but I'm holding up an orange Sharpie in front of Jim. I don't know if it's papaya.
Oh, no,
but
not papaya.
Okay, but I can tell you I've got two or three. I've got my...
Orange Gatorade. This looks closer to papaya to me. And
I'm just saying, for the low rate of like $4.99 an hour labor, I can do up a chassis with a couple Sharpies.
Yeah, I think McLaren might pay you more for that.
Okay.
If you were interested in in a second date, job, if you're...
this one might not be working out, okay. So, but all ass-hattery aside here, if McLaren were to have rolled out sooner with a car that was not visibly perfect, I believe the reaction by most would be, we see that every year.
Yeah.
Because someone crashes, they realize time is of the essence. We'll make it pretty once we have the time and or get in the show.
It shows you where their priorities were. Honestly, in that situation, at that point, I don't think there was any urgency yet. I don't think they realized the trouble they were in yet. And again, this goes back to what kind of Zach was saying in the story, was that I just think that they underestimated just how tough this is, and I think that was part of it. And I mean, you can't have a whole day where you're not on track. You just can't. A whole Thursday, and Wednesday, all of Wednesday afternoon, I believe, right? Because Fernando crashed Wednesday afternoon. I mean, you're playing catch up after that, and you and I, we haven't even gotten to their allegiances formed late on Saturday night going into Sunday, and how that just didn't end up working out anyway.
So there were, quote, rumors that McLaren Racing was inquiring with other teams, could they buy an entry? I have heard that might have been an overstatement. Indeed, they were searching for, among Chevy teams, is there a setup we could
a little
purchase?
help with setup, yep.
There have been a lot of comments, especially on the good old tweeters and book faces, as you would expect, folks saying, Team Penske's not going to help, but Ed Carpenter Racing, they always run an extra car each year. Why didn't they go and speak to them? And I think many of us have it on pretty solid authority. Ed Carpenter's general mind frame was, sure, I'll talk with you. How much is going to cost?
Yeah.
Here's a number that is so outrageous you just won't bother me anymore. Why? Not because I dislike you, because I want to beat you. So if you want to come play, here's a ridiculous number that my kids' colleges are going to be paid into the future off of this. But by and large, no, I want to beat Fernando Alonso just as badly as anyone else.
Ed wants to win. Ed's not concerned. I mean, Ed obviously he has budgetary concerns in the future to worry about, but he's at the place where he cares about the most in the world.
So we saw Donnie Lambert, Andretti Technologies, longtime Andretti guy, saw him on the timing stand during the LCQ practice session, which I can tell you my little iPhone information device done lit up with a lot of texts from race engineers, mechanics, you name it, who weren't in the LCQ but were in Gasoline Alley watching, going,
hey,
what?
Who's that guy? Why is he there?
Also heard, and again, this is just two guys talking into microphones, not saying any of this is factual or correct, had heard there might have been a suggestion, knowing the Andretti-Brown business relationship.
Sure.
Had heard that there might have been a decree from, I'll just say, the engine manufacturer representing one of those two brands.
Okay.
That if any staff from one team was seen with the other, they would be more or less permanently excommunicated as a result. So
didn't hear that one. That's fun.
I would not call that a threat, just a clarification of expectations. That's the other camp. That's the other tribe.
Yeah.
You're in our tribe. Know where the battle lines are. And if you cross it, just know ahead of time, you're dead to us. Interesting to see them go in the direction of Andretti Technologies to use their dampers. Damping is still a huge thing, even though some folks might think, well, isn't it just a speedway? The car isn't bouncing and well, it's still critical place of importance. Didn't pay off. There were mistakes there made in ride height.
Yeah.
What's been cited, again, both in Jenna's story, but I've seen many other places talking about when the car went out and the ride height was too low and it turned into a sparkler. It actually did that twice. So I know that the yellow came out while Fernando was on track when it started raining, but he had come in after they saw the problem. They made adjustments, and it was doing it the next outing as well. This is a car that looks like it was out of fuel on one of his 5 runs on Saturday. And so seeing the blinking low fuel warning lights on the dash, not a surprise during qualifying. Each team can set that minimum threshold to be whichever level they want to in the tank. They want to trigger that. But we did see on the 4th lap, and I believe it might have been Fernando's 3rd run, where we just heard the motor start to protect itself and start to wind down. So we have that. There are many other things. Some things that are, Jenna's, again, store's excellent, covers a ton of stuff. There are a lot of other things that weren't in there. But this is the reason I want to talk about this to the length that we have, Jim, is this is a systematic failure. This isn't, good old Bill over there, he sucks, and look at all the negative ways he's impacting things. Sure. This is multiple people in senior management level responsibilities just simply either making poor decisions or even worse, which is what I saw a lot of, making no decisions, inaction. That's the thing that fascinates me, where I can sit there and go, ooh, that guy's been around forever. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And this guy over here. And yet what was fascinating to observe there, say compared to Elton Julian's pit box, I don't know if you've had a chance to spend some time down there, pretty clear. Hey, I'm the boss.
Yeah.
I'm not wielding it as power, but I'm wielding it in terms of direction.
This is
Change this thing, do that, pit now, go out, turn left, brake, whatever it is. Clear, direct, and that leads to consistent execution. What I witnessed during the open test and this week in the McLaren pit box is car comes in, clearly something wrong, clearly there's a bit of confusion, and I'm just looking who's reacting, who's taking charge. And I obviously could not hear their internal communications. I asked, they didn't give me a headset. But that's the thing where you go, hell, we saw earlier today a 90-year-old gentleman fell off of a chair while trying to put stuff up on the wall here in the media center.
Yeah.
And a couple of us, I think you're one of them as well, got up right away. Yeah. Sir, can I help you? Meanwhile, not a surprise. It's kind of a human condition. There are a lot of people who just sat and watched and said, oh, no, and waited to see if, he's still moving. Oh, okay. And then saw someone else get up to get to him. I wasn't the first to him. See if he was okay. That's kind of what I saw a lot of in the McLaren pits. Who's going to do something?
I don't know if it was too many cooks in the kitchen and no chef. Is that really what it is? Because they had guys, like you talked about, there was experienced people there, guys with won Indy 500s, guys with long IndyCar resumes, people that, I talked to Connor, he went on and on, Connor Daly, he went on and on about Andy Brown and the qualities of Andy Brown. And it's just surprising to me that it wasn't organized in a way that you saw, like you said, you could identify these mistakes, because every team has these mistakes throughout the month, or most teams have these kind of mistakes throughout the month, and able to bounce back from. I don't know. It was the biggest moment for me was that, again, it's going back to that moment where Fernando crashed, and he said it on Saturday after his first qualifying run, which was clearly not going to be good enough. He said Coyne Racing spent the entire night getting their car ready to make sure we were back out here Saturday morning, and we missed an entire day of practice. What does that tell you? I mean, that's pretty much what he said. That's all you need to say. They weren't ready. They weren't prepared. And
I think, Jim, that speaks to Fernando's very amazing reaction to these failings, if you agree.
I think he was surprised, to be honest with you, that it was this level of failure, honestly. Completely.
I think that, seeing how bad things had become, contributed to him saying, look, I'm still going to go out and keep trying. I'll never stop trying. But there was no, at least external, trigger points of disappointment. There seemed to be all right, I'll do my part, but I'm not going to be surprised if this doesn't pan out. But I'm also just really impressed with his acceptance of what it takes to be a member of this race. And I can think of some other drivers who acted far more, I'll just say poorly, on Saturday when they didn't make the Fast 30. And there were some who were less graceful in failing to make the show yesterday.
Yeah.
So for someone with a lot of eyeballs on everything that he does and a lot of expectation, for him to be just as graceful and respectful of where he is at and what it means, it said a lot. I told someone else, he could have been 2016, 17, whatever era, Fernando Alonso, McLaren, Honda, F1, just setting things on fire.
Ripping things apart, yeah.
And he had that opportunity.
He did.
He was given every opportunity to be nasty as he wanted to be, and he wasn't. So I don't know if from those experiences he's learned a better way of handling things, or if this place, or if the genuinely great Fernando Alonso was humbled.
Maybe. I mean, he definitely he didn't leave on Saturday. It pretty much said McLaren has messed this up. This is not where it's supposed to be. But again, I'm not going to get on the guy for being honest as a reporter. I treasure those people.
Yeah.
Those guys who will actually tell you the truth and will be honest with you, and sometimes it doesn't sound good. I think a guy like Graham Rahal gets crushed for that a lot of the time, and it frustrates me because I think he gets crushed for complaining or whining when in fact he is asked a question about what went wrong, and he tells you what went wrong. Whether it was him, which he will confess when it is him that makes a mistake, or whether it was something that happened to the team, I'll tell you if something the team made a mistake. I know that rubs a lot of people the wrong way, but to me, I crave that honesty. I do. And I think that Fernando has that kind of honesty. And then at the end of it all, the grace not to go back and back the truck back over, but to say, you have to be, I don't know about perfect to make the show, but you got to be close to perfect. And we weren't. And when Gilles de Ferran said we're not buying it, we don't want to buy, McLaren doesn't want to buy back in, we don't deserve it. We didn't earn it. And I think Fernando truly believed that in his heart, that, I don't know if there's ever an Indianapolis 500 winner that's tainted. So if he were to say come back in a car and won, would it have been tainted? I don't know, maybe. But I don't think he could have stomached starting that race in somebody else's car, and I respect that quite a bit.
Let's close with this, Jim. So we're going to take a couple days off. Well, let me rephrase that. There'll be no cars on track. I don't think anybody here in any capacity is taking days off. Gasoline Alley, Media Center, you name it. What are a couple things from your unique perspective, again, as a person earlier in your career but doing really good work, what are some of the things you're seeing coming this weekend, Sunday, for the 103rd 500 that you think folks should be paying attention to as themes?
Interesting.
I talk about this crap all the time, so I'm just hoping someone else will fill the void, so my apologies there. I'll pay you when we're done.
You know what, though? This whole month has been David versus Goliath, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
A little bit. It's
Totally.
been Hunkos, it's been Dragon Speed, it's been Clausen Marshall, and then it's been the failures of McLaren and Aero Schmidt-Peterson to a point. And they did rebound, of course, but yeah, you've seen a lot of these titans fall, and we're going into the 103rd running. It's been 5 straight wins for Penske and Andretti. And so now I'm wondering, are we going to have another David story here? And I think, does Ed Carpenter count as a David?
I was going to ask. In terms of quality, they certainly are not a David.
Correct, and they haven't been for years.
But in terms of potential, knowing what they're up against, we know that they're not flush with Penske cash, Andretti cash.
No. They lost a big sponsor going into this year. They still had resources to make this thing work, but that hurts.
I would definitely put that as a home team victory, beating the big out of towners. So would I be disappointed in any way? Heck no. I'm not from Indiana, but I would love nothing more than to see.
But I love the hometown story.
Folks here being able to celebrate one of their own. Again, all coming from the standpoint of we're highly impartial.
Of course.
And of course, have no opinion.
No, but you do cheer for the good storylines. I don't think you can admit that kind of thing. And I think a guy like Ed Jones. Well, Ed Jones has been a couple of races, but Ed Carpenter winning this race would just be an incredible story in itself. And I think another incredible one, we've all talked about it. It's been written a million times, but Marco is really good here. Marco Andretti, and obviously this is the 50th anniversary of his Have you heard, by the way? Have you heard anywhere that
Aldo Andretti?
Yes.
I think is his grandfather. Yes.
Yeah. I think Mario won some race 50-ish years
Hoosier
ago.
100.
Yes, correct. 50. And but still, the storyline would be great because you have the quote unquote Andretti curse, which Mario refuses to acknowledge, and I totally understand that because he thinks it's silly and stupid, and it is in a way. But they haven't won, his family, and there have been a lot of close calls. So and Marco is starting 10th, right? He's got a pretty good Honda. I think the Chevrolets clearly have an advantage going into this race. As we saw today in practice, I think Alex looked pretty good in traffic. And some of these other guys look pretty good in traffic. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that we're going to see a Chevrolet win. So I think that's a fun story. I know it's the one everyone's talking about, but Marco wants it pretty badly here. Pretty badly.
My main thought before practice started was Alexander Rossi, Joseph Newgarden. I think we're going to see they're not next generation. They're almost mid-generation. Yeah. They're still young.
Right.
But
27, 28, yeah.
I think they are going to further distinguish themselves as Indy 500 badasses. Joseph going for his first. I love, just from a regional standpoint, we have France represented 1st and 7th, right?
Yeah.
We've got Sebastian Bourdais, the person who helped Simon create a career for himself here, vouched for him, spoke with folks. So here we have Bourdais sitting P7, Sebastian first 100 years since the last Frenchman sat on pole, which is amazing.
Incredible.
Right? Just good on him, too, to know that. And like, well, I'll try a little harder to get the pole just so I can say that. I love that fact, Jim. I do love as well some of the off-the-radar performances we've seen in qualifying. Jones, you mentioned Ed Jones.
Yep.
I'm loving where Ed Jones is at. I'm loving where Spencer Pigot is at. If they can tie together some stronger road course races throughout the rest of the year, I don't want to see Ed Carpenter retire at any point in time, but what I have not seen is that logical successor if and when he gets to that point where he makes that decision.
That's fair.
Right? Hey, we know you can go hire road racing kids, but who from the team would be able to maintain the quality and constant threat at the 500 if you're not in the car?
Right.
Hey,
yeah,
you got a couple of good candidates here.
Yeah. A couple of young talents.
But I love that. I love Colton Herta in P5.
My gosh, that kid.
If he were to win the 500, first of all, my spleen would explode, and I don't know why I've chosen that internal organ. But someone asked me a couple of days ago, walking by, whose victory would help IndyCar the most at the 500? Which driver's victory would help bring the sport to a higher level, bigger level, get it out to both coasts the way it once was? And my answer then was Pato.
Okay.
And this obviously before qualifying. That would have been a really hilarious answer if it was after qualifying. But that's because you and I both know the kid is just giant personality.
Yeah, he's dynamite. Love it.
Crazy everything, crazy talent, so much fun. With Pato not in the race, I'm having to say that's Colton Herta. I mean, he is so smart, so witty. He's got a really sharp tongue. He'll carve you up, and you don't even know it half the time. He's the thing we'd hoped Rossi might develop into.
Okay.
Kind of let the hair down a little bit because the stupid talent's there.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy. But what's the thing that will get folks to engage? Well, Rossi is absolute number one guy for introverts. And that's not a critical thing. I'm an extrovert. My wife's an introvert. Somehow we make it work.
Yeah.
People,
opposite attract. That's
50-50. I don't know if it's truly 50-50, but if we're just talking a fun, crazy kid who's got talent to win a 500 potentially on his debut, but then also have a Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, you name it, rolling, crying, tears in their eyes on their show as a guest after winning the 500, Colton stands out as someone who could do that. Whether it's year one at 500 or many years down the road. But I'm just liking, Jim, some of these kind of off the radar, almost off-brand qualifying performances coming in that we've now seen coming into the month, where you say Connor Daly, P11.
Yeah, he did great.
Marcus Ericsson, P13. James Davison, P15.
I don't know if you would have guessed among one-off drivers if you thought James Davison was going to be the top half of the field. That's just an impressive performance. Because I think you might have guessed Connor. You probably would have guessed Fernando going into the year or going into the month, maybe. I just don't think you would have seen that from that car. So he's done just one hell of a job getting up there.
I like the Davison one too, because you always know where he is on pit lane because you smell both cologne and perfume. He covers both bases. Gotta love that about that kid.
Doesn't lack for confidence either, which I enjoy about him, honestly.
He is probably, he and Charlie Kimball, it'd be hilarious if they were ever teammates, because you'd have the two most hated drivers among all the other drivers. But these are two guys who are just going to crowbar their way to the front.
Yeah.
And I realize that since we aren't the ones side by side with them doing 235 into a corner, maybe it's easy to have this opinion, but I got nothing but love for someone like a Davison or a Charlie who I'm going forward, and if you don't realize that, that's on you.
You're not wrong. I mean, like I said, they're definitely not the most beloved guys in the paddock, but I got no issues. I like talking to these guys. They're honest, and they're, like you said, they're willing to put it all out there. And Charlie, especially on ovals, you know what he's going to do. He's done it. He's done it for the last 10 years. I wanted to get back to your point though on Colton. I just loved. I can't ever get over the. I think somebody asked him, "Are you in awe sitting next to Fernando Alonso?" And the response was just, "No." I mean, maybe if we were in Europe and I was in his turf, but he's on our turf now. I just thought that was the most badass thing.
And I want to beat him.
Oh my gosh, I loved it. I thought if he didn't make 1 million fans right there, that would be huge.
What was funny was some of the reactions I saw from folks again on the social medias saying, oh, well, someone needs to teach him respect.
No.
And I'm like, you realize these are athletes competing. It's a structured sport where there's winners and losers, and the guy who's not on your team
That's
is
the mentality you got to have. You got to. He's got that Alexander Rossi, that killer instinct.
Totally.
He wants to murder you in the nicest way possible.
And then play the drums and give you
exactly.
something to download.
I will say, though, for the other, I wanted to add, again, this is not an off-the-radar picks, and this is kind of cheating, but Hinch would be a big win across the country. I mean,
Good Lord.
Just in terms of big draw for IndyCar, I think he'd be on that list, that short list of what would be the biggest thing for IndyCar. I think Colton's up there, obviously. Colton and Hinch, I think, are high on that list, I would guess.
2 quick things, and I know you have to get back to work, Jim. I'm looking at a couple of names in this field of 33, and it is a couple. It's not a handful, but there are a couple where I'm saying, all right, you're not really going to factor on Sunday.
Sure.
It'd be a grand surprise. By and large, though, I'm seeing 25-ish drivers. Not saying all 25 can win.
No, but they can.
But they
top
can
10
move.
potential, yeah.
They can move, and depth-wise, this is pretty darn awesome.
I hate to sound like you're like pumping the series and echoing what the drivers say, but you look at the 1-2-33, you're like, there aren't that many holes here. There aren't that many weaknesses here. I really feel like this is one of the deepest fields we've seen in a while.
It's impressing. And again, I mean, there have been years where there's been a couple stronger drivers in a few seats, but you just look at how close things have been speed-wise and the difficulties that have been had all week long with winds and setup. I mean, this has been one of the most difficult weeks I can recall. Up and down, talk to any driver. Hey, you're fastest. I know, but my car's killing me. Just looking at the depth that we have here, that's really impressive. Let's close on this coming back to one of the central points that we spent a lot of time on. Would it surprise you to know that a lot of folks have said McLaren should have gone to Ed Carpenter Racing? Would it surprise you to know that Ed Carpenter Racing, heck, IndyCar wasn't the only paddock McLaren went to searching for possible solution providers, and things did not work out there as well? What does that leave you with, Jim, if you're thinking McLaren potential 2020 coming back? Do you think just, all right, Fernley's gone and rotate this person out, pull in, do it yourself again? Do you think subcontract? What would you think would be the smart play?
The smart play to me is to push your chips in, because first of all, you can't leave that distaste in your. If you're McLaren, this can't be the taste you leave in the mouths of Americans, pretty much, because this is the only American race you're doing. I mean, obviously Formula One comes over here, but that's it. So to me, you push your chips in, you join the series full time, and that's how you compete in the Indianapolis 500. Because I think the 4 to 5 races building in, I know they're not ovals, I get it, but you build team continuity. I mean, it's exactly what you talked about. You know, by the time you're at the 6th race, you know who's in charge. I would hope. You know who's supposed to be doing what and fixing what, and so to me is, if you really are serious about trying to win the Indianapolis 500, not just enter the Indianapolis 500, come here full time and do it right. And I think they have the resources to do it. I think they have the will to do it. I do. I think Zach Brown is not kidding around when he says he wants to come to IndyCar again. And this shouldn't be the thing that scares them off. This should be the thing that pushes them and says, we didn't do it right this time. Here's how we're going to fix it. Here's how we're going to do it right next time. Here's the 17 race season. I don't know. What do you think?
I had a friend who was on that crew. I haven't named him and I won't name him, but I had a friend who was on that team who told me from the first time I saw him, I have no idea why they have me here. And he wasn't being funny. He said, I shouldn't be here. I don't know enough about the particular thing, the expertise he was hired for, but they insisted. They wanted me here, so I'm here. But this is not a car thing.
No.
This is a construction thing. Name the challenge. All right, Jim, there is a new contest to build 33 houses. And everyone has the same lumber, the same everything. But you all need to come up with the best blueprint on how all of it's going to be assembled, the speed at which things are done, the quality of the craftsmanship. And then you have to have someone manage that process. Mm-hmm. And it's a race to build the best house using the same exact tools. And you go, all right, so then it really is on us. There can be a situation where the person swinging the hammer, the drivers in this case, there might be some that are a little bit better than others,
Right.
but rarely is that the differentiator between making the show and being P1 and being out of the show. This is a people thing, and look, as someone who failed more than he wanted to in his career, I'm serious. I've told folks I'm not playing. This isn't humor. I was good at times at what I did in IndyCar. Was never great. Had a career I enjoyed. Worked for a lot of smaller teams where I could do my thing. I wouldn't have survived at a big team for very long because I didn't have the dedication to do that. Those people exist. Just because you work for a team with a big name doesn't mean that everyone's an all-star. They had a lot of all-stars, but again, this all comes back to people, man. And part of me says, do you really want to go through the effort of having to hire and mold and shape and take years to make that team a success? Or do you go to championship winning program A, B, or C and say, what's it going to cost?
You're not wrong. That would be one way. I guess on the IndyCar perspective, on the outside, I'd rather see them do it themselves.
I agree. No, I don't disagree, but I'm just thinking
But
from
right.
if you want to succeed.
Yeah, right. If there's a team out there that is willing to sell and willing to, or subcontract or whatever the case may be, I don't know. Maybe you do it. Maybe you could do if something more reasonable, like what Meyer Shank does. You just start slowly and build in. I mean, I don't know if McLaren has that kind of patience, but clearly what they're doing is effective and working and admirable in every way.
I think what they have set themselves up for, as we attempt to close for the fifth time, and I push your deadlines back even further, I think what we have, Jim, is a situation where they've set themselves up in a position where, having just failed on the biggest stage possible, coming back and then putting themselves in a position where they have to then spend years learning how to win, I think those things would clash a little bit.
Yeah.
If McLaren's board of directors, which has money to say, make this happen, is going to green light it, my suspicion would be, okay, but race one at St. Pete, or if it's just simply coming back to the 500, if we aren't in the Fast 6 in qualifying on that street course, if we aren't in the Fast 9 here, everybody's getting fired.
Yeah,
we're not
roll.
warming up to this.
Yeah.
We had just had a chance and burned it, so we either show up on top, and to do that, you either cherry pick the best people in the paddock. A lot of those people probably wouldn't want to do that, having seen, hey, you want me to go to work for you? We just beat you.
It just depends how big the check is, right?
Well, maybe. It'll be interesting to see. Again, a lot of ifs here, but I think most of us would like to see them back.
I feel like we bashed them in a lot of ways, and I don't want them. I want them back. I want them to come back and try again. I think they can do it better, and I think IndyCar and Indy 500 are better for having McLaren and Fernando Alonso here, whether those together or separate. But yeah, I want to see them come back and try this thing again and do it right.
That was a voice of the Indy Stars, IndyCar star.
You're so good.
Look at that.
So much better than me.
Jim Ayello, thanks, my man.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.